I never thought I'd hear those words. For 3 years, we've been building a life together, one that seemed steady, secure, and built on trust. Yet that evening, she looked at me with tears gathering in her eyes and whispered, "I kiss my ex." The air left the room. The walls seemed to close in as her confession hung between us, heavy and suffocating. I just stared, letting the words sink in, resisting the urge to react. Every instinct in me screamed to speak, but I stayed silent. She continued, voice trembling, explaining how it happened. A party, an old joke, a flicker of past chemistry, and one reckless moment. I listened without interrupting, without pleading, without asking the questions that burned inside me. I could have shouted. I could have demanded answers or apologies that might patch the cracks now spreading through everything we'd built. But I knew silence would say far more than any words could. It wasn't about revenge or pride. It was about clarity, about seeing what had changed and what could never be the same again. Her eyes searched mine for anger, for heartbreak, for some sign that I was shattering the way she expected. But I didn't give her that. I remained still, calm, deliberate. Every heartbeat was measured, every breath controlled. She broke down, sobbing, the weight of regret crushing her. She waited for me to collapse, to mirror her guilt, but I didn't. I took a slow breath and let her confession land fully. The truth was out, and now the next step was mine to decide. After a long silence, I finally spoke, my voice low but steady. "Thank you for being honest," I said. "Not because it's easy, not because it doesn't hurt, but because truth, even when it cuts deep, deserves acknowledgement." She looked stunned, as though expecting an explosion, something irreversible, but I stayed composed. I wasn't naive. I understood what she had done and what it meant, but I also understood my own boundaries. She stumbled through explanations, apologies, and excuses, trying to justify the mistake that couldn't be undone. Her remorse was real, but so was the damage. The trust we'd spent years building had splintered in seconds. And in that moment, I realized something. My reaction would define not just that night, but everything that came after. I didn't want to act out of rage. I didn't want to beg or play out some dramatic scene just to prove how much I hurt. What I needed was clarity. "I need time," I said simply. No blame, no argument, just truth. She sank into the couch, face buried in her hands, tears slipping through her fingers. I stood still, watching quietly, fully aware that whatever came next was entirely up to me. I understood then that not every wound needs an instant resolution, that sometimes strength lies in stillness, not fury. As the evening dragged on, we existed in a fragile silence, her apology my calm, both of us knowing something irreversible had changed. The only sounds were her muffled sobs and the steady ticking of the clock, each second heavy with consequence. The following days were quiet, painfully so. She reached out over and over. Texts, calls, messages filled with remorse and longing. Each one arrived like a small test of my resolve. I didn't reply, not to punish her, but to give myself a space to process, to breathe, to decide what I truly deserved. I thought about our years together, the laughter, the comfort, the routine, and the fragile trust that had now shattered. I realized love without trust can't survive, and no apology could instantly mend what was broken. My strength, I understood, would not come from anger or retaliation, but from how firmly I held my boundaries. Eventually, we spoke again. Not a confrontation, not an argument, just a calm, honest conversation. I told her, gently but firmly, that I couldn't move forward as though nothing had happened. She nodded, tears in her eyes, understanding the reality she had created. There was no satisfaction in that moment, no triumph, only acceptance, a quiet acknowledgement of what was lost. In the weeks that followed, I turned my focus inward, rebuilding my routines, reconnected with friends, rediscovering the self I had started to lose. She moved on too, though the guilt never left her eyes. A reminder that choices carry consequences. Sometimes the loudest statement you can make is silence, the calm decision to walk away with dignity instead of despair. And in that quiet, I found peace. Proof that even after betrayal, you can rise again, not bitter, but whole.